Good morning, here is Filippo Maitan from Euromask Finishing Group. What I'd like to talk about is the speed with which Euromask is able to provide samples of special projects. It means all those masks printed out of standard, thanks to the use of two new technologies developed by us. But first of all, what is Euromask? Euromask, a finishing group brand, has been for 20 years a leader in the production and distribution of articles for masking and surface treatments, from powder coating to immersion coating, from galvanic baths to sandblasting treatments. We transform adhesive tapes for high temperature by cutting them to the size requested by the customer, and we produce customized shapes in laminated tape for every kind of masking need. In addition, thanks to a well-stocked warehouse and 6 locations in the world, we have a wide range of silicone and rubber molded items useful for every need. Caps, plugs, tubes, and ropes are just some examples of the items in our catalog. Finally, we have a technical staff that studies daily new projects for both adhesive tape and rubber molded items, aimed at solving any masking problem. However, this is what almost all masking manufacturers do, more or less. The strength of Euromask is the speed in each of these areas, starting from the execution in 24 or 48 hours of 85% of orders received, thanks to a global warehouse distributed in the various locations that always has over 160 million pieces in the stock. So quickness is the great pride of Euromask, which finds its maximum expression in the supply of customized prototypes for customer tests. As you know, often the classic caps, plugs, and stamps normally on the market are not sufficient to meet the needs of masking, both for shape and size. And it is precisely here that Euromask has invested time and resources to give effective answers. Physical samples in the customer's hands in 3 or 5 working days instead of the classic 20 or 30 days that are required. Physical samples, as I was saying, that allow the customer to touch the finished article and test it directly on the piece to be treated. And with this timing, you can afford to make changes if necessary, while still maintaining times that are well below standard. On the contrary, I am personally proud to tell you about cases in which the customer, even without warning, came to our offices with the piece to be treated, asking for a masking solution, and half an hour later left our factory in Lainate with the sample to be tested. The same evening he sent the purchase order, and the next day he received 1,000 pieces of production. Clearly, his luck is that it is located a few kilometers from Euromask, but you certainly understand the concept. But how is it possible? Well, it is possible thanks to two technologies in particular, on which, as I was saying, Euromask has invested time and resources to obtain, and has obtained, the maximum performance. In fact, thanks to a machine for the flat cutting of rubber sheets and three-dimensional printer technology, all this has become possible. Let's see them in detail, starting from flat cutting. Thanks to this machine, which is the creator of the above-mentioned example, we have the possibility to reproduce any flat shape that is in the processing parameters of the machine. With a simple CAD drawing, it is therefore possible to reproduce on silicone, EPDM, NBR, silicone foam, or EPDM foam sheets any template that perfectly fits the customer's needs. Nowadays, and our studies are continuous and in continuous evolution, we can process sheets with thicknesses ranging from 1 mm for magnetic silicone up to 20 mm for EPDM foam. We are in fact required from the simplest discs or washers 3, 4, 5 mm, the cap, up to more complex shapes such as multi-hole gaskets for the treatment of flanges or motors or cable mechanical parts, for which the treatment of several joint bodies is required. Other items may require templates with more important thicknesses from 8 to 10 mm, or in NBR adhesive useful for sandblasting. As you can see, the possibilities of shapes are as manifold as the many materials that we can work and supply today. And as you can well imagine, Euromask is really and concretely able to provide a sample in a few minutes using this technology. Just have a CAD drawing, if possible, or at best the piece on which the mask will be applied. Let's talk about now the three-dimensional print. This technology is instead a bit more complex, but at the same time more satisfying, because it allows us to produce even very complex samples in 3 or 5 working days times that vary according to the complexity, of course. Unlike the previous technology, this one doesn't limit itself to create flat shapes, but allows us to create real complex items with countersinks, holes, concavity, handles, and whatever else is necessary for the realization of a solution that meets all standard needs. In fact, this technology, studied and developed completely in Euromask, exploits the addition printing, better known as a three-dimensional printing, for the creation of molds that will be then used for the realization of the finished article. Finished article that will be made in silicon. Warning, the article is not made with the three-dimensional printer using ABS or PLA or PA or anything else. If this were the case, the sample would not be real and would be unusable by the customer during testing because it would be different from the rubber article resulting from production due to its physical characteristics. Moreover, it would not be really usable. If you want to try to put a piece in ABS in the oven at 200 degrees for 20 minutes or in a galvanic bath, I strongly advise against it. Anyway, the finished piece is made of silicon, a silicon that has a slightly lower Shore A than the standard 55 Shore silicon we use in production, but in 90% of cases it doesn't show any difference in the seal on the finished piece. And if you could guess a possible difficulty of use because of a difference in hardness, nothing would prohibit to go into production with a lower Shore A silicon. This difference in hardness, let me say negligible, is the result of a mixture of silicons created specifically to respect the main need of silicon used in this sector, the absolute absence of volatile components that may compromise the final treatment. Those of you who do powder coating know very well that few volatile particles from silicon can pollute the oven and compromise the subsequent painting and varnishing with hateful dodges on the treated surface, thus forcing you to stop production to reclaim the oven. Well, this mixture in these proportions turns out to be harmless, both from the laboratory tests we conducted for about 1 year before obtaining the right formula, and from the tests conducted by our customers who have already benefited from this rapid alternative. As with flat cutting, you can assess this technology simply by providing the design specifications or the part to be masked, or even better, both. With these premises, the Euromask staff will be able to produce 1 or 2 physical samples of any type and shape so that they can solve any masking problem in a very short time and with considerable savings for the customer. Now, as you can see, Euromask is able to provide further possibilities that go beyond the usual channels for the realization of prototypes and samples with what we believe is the maximum benefit that can be gained from a production to make the preliminary phase of production test faster. In short, saving 15 or 20 days translates into saving a lot of money. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day. We remain at your disposal at our stand OA stand A13.